If you're just tuning into us here in JMC Live, we're talking about to give in thanks. I want to thank Taken from the Night, which we interviewed not too long ago. Miss Allie Tower sent me a ball cap. I would actually like to thank her for that, and I'm wearing it on tonight's show. I just got it recently. I have to tell you, to give in thanks and to understand what is going on in today's society, there's a lot of dark and dreary things that we have shared today. But there are 23,000 people who voted, yes, that child should be born. So there is a light at the end of this dark tunnel, even though there are almost 6,000 people who voted abort the child. We're going to talk about the Pilgrims leaving Plymouth, England. September 6th.
Plymouth. They landed at Plymouth Rock, darling.
No, the Pilgrims left Plymouth, England on September 6th,
I thought you
1620.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Their destination was soon to be the United States of America, the Americas. For over 2 months, the 102 passengers went through the tossy seas to finally, with firm purpose and direction and reliance on the divine providence, the cry of land was heard. They arrived in Massachusetts late that November, and the Pilgrims sought out a good, suitable place that they could land. December 11th, just before disembarking at Plymouth Rock, they signed the Mayflower Compact. Now, I'm going to actually try and read to you what is considered, and a lot of people argue whether or not this is what the Mayflower Compact said. Some religious institutions, some historical facts say that it is, and others say not. But, you know, I believe, honestly, this has got to be a good representation of what it could be and what it's not. So here we go. The Mayflower Compact reads, and I state, so I take my hat off. This is almost like a prayer. In the name of God, amen. We, whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord, King James, by the grace of God of England, France, and Ireland, King, defender of the faith, have undertaken for the glory of our God and advancement of the Christian faith, and the honor of our king and country, a voyage to the plant, the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these presents, solemnly and mutually in the presence of God, and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together in a civil body potluck, for our better ordering and preservation, and furtherance of the ends aforesaid, and by virtue hereof to enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time, and shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience. In witness thereof we have hereunto subscribed our names at Cape Cobb, the 11th of November, in the reign of our sovereign Lord King James of England, France, and Ireland, the 18th, and of Scotland, the 54th, and in Domini, 1620. Mayflower Compact, November 11th, 1620. This is America's first document of civil government, and it's also the first steps towards a freedom of Christian right. If anyone knows the battle of the Protestants and the Catholics in the Church of England, in England and Ireland, we know present day, 2010, there is a Protestant-Catholic battle going on in Iceland and Ireland and even in other parts of the country.
In Ireland, it's been going on for centuries.
The Crusades, that's the biggest thing a lot of people learn sometimes in junior high or high school. You learn about all these English people, and they got these really cool lions on their shields or crosses, and they're fighting people with, stars and all this other stuff. It's Protestants and Catholics. The famous Knight Templars. When all these guys got together, they're really strong.
Well, the Crusades were also mostly against the Jews and the Muslims.
Here's the thing.
The Jerusalem.
After a prayer service, the pilgrims began building shelters. A lot of people, they were unprepared, they starved, they got sick, and almost half died before the spring.
That's not even including how many died on the boat before they even got here.
Yet they prayed, and they were assisted by the Native Americans. It was the Native Americans who saw these people as not aliens, but other brothers and sisters that looked different than them, but weren't aliens. Mm-hmm. There were some Native Americans. There's a lot of kids that call them Indians. Did not want these people here, but the grateful pilgrims, alongside their friendly Native Americans, declared a 3-day feast starting December 13th, 1621. What was their purpose? To give in thanks. Number 1, to thank God. Number 2, to celebrate with their Native Americans. These are 2 of the biggest things. And number 3, to celebrate being safe, finding the new land. I mean, the list goes on and on what they did. This was not the first Thanksgiving in America. Mm-hmm. The earliest that we can find on record were held in Virginia as early as 1607. It was America's first Thanksgiving festival. Furthermore, Pilgrim Edward Winslow described the Pilgrims' Thanksgiving, and I quote, "Our harvest been gotten in. Our governor sent 4 men on fowling," which is birds, fowl, birds of hunting, turkeys. That's what we do now, is turkeys and duck. Depending on where you live, you can have a duck or a goose or a turkey or a ham, depends on how you celebrate. So that we might, after a special manner, rejoice together after we have had gathered the fruit of our labors. They 4 in one day killed as many fowl as they could. They killed a lot of birds. Served the company almost a week. Many of the Native Americans came with them, and their king, and I saw it, and some 90 men, whom for 3 days entertained and feasted. Wow. They also killed 5 deer, which they brought back. And they said, "By the goodness of God, we are far from want." Then in 1789, George Washington, America celebrated its first Thanksgiving to God under its new Constitution. The same year, the Protestant Episcopal Church, that which Washington was a member, announced Thursday in November will become the regular day for giving thanks. Quote, "unless another day be appointed by the civil authorities." Also, much credit later to the annual National Thanksgiving Day to Miss Sarah Joseph Hale, the editor of Godey's Ladies' Book. For 30 years, she promoted it, National Thanksgiving Day, contacting the president after president, until finally President Abraham Lincoln in 1863 set aside the last Thursday of November as the National Day of Thanksgiving. For the next 75 years, presidents following Lincoln's precedent annually declared National Thanksgiving Day until 1941. Congress permanently established the 4th Thursday of each November as the National Day. Lincoln's original 1863 Thanksgiving Proclamation came during the first week of July that year. The Battle of Gettysburg, there was a war, there was a lot of loss. Some 60,000 American lives were lost. 4 months later, in November, he gives his famous Gettysburg Address. And he says, "When I left Springfield, I asked the people to pray for me. I was not a Christian. When I buried my son, the severest trial of my life, I was not a Christian. But when I went to Gettysburg, and I saw these graves of thousands of soldiers, I then and there consecrated myself to Christ." So it was Abraham Lincoln, even though he buried his son, once he finally saw, and if you've ever seen on TV the flags at the memorials, if that doesn't strike you, of hard work, self-reliant communities, and devout religious faith, then I don't know what you don't understand. You see, these pilgrims understood something. And I know a lot of people argue and complain and want to use all these different things But people don't seem to want to move beyond all these different situations. They get stuck in themselves and they don't know how to give in thanks. Because if you're going to give in thanks, that means you're giving somebody else something. See, that's what Thanksgiving originally was about. The Native Americans gave food and shelter and taught them how to grind the corn. They taught them how to till the land. They taught them how to, build the homes and explain about the seasons and different things. Then the people that came from overseas, which eventually became Americans, brought medicine and doctors and friends. And some of these people, interracial events started happening. And they had kids and they had families and things. And they gave to each other. Mutually. It wasn't, oh yeah, I have this, you give me $5, you can have it. No, they just mutually traded things. It was a barter system. But they went a lot further than that. Because they wanted to help people. They wanted people to understand. Just like me. This hat says U.S. Coast Guard Veteran on it. Do you realize I have not had one person shake my hand other than family members while wearing this hat? Not one person. Because people do not realize what being a veteran is, and people do not realize what giving and thanks is. They don't think about Thanksgiving anything more than I'm going to fill my belly because, I got to get some turkey and I got to get some stuffing and pumpkin pies and, oh yeah, I got to go to bed early because it's Black Friday. Oh, all those people in Wilmington, Ohio, or all those people in California that don't have work, or all those people that are standing in lines for hours in gas a couple of years ago in Georgia. Oh, that's not going to be me. Oh, I don't live in Ohio. I don't live in California. I don't live in Georgia. I don't have a care in the world. I'm the manager of a restaurant. We're not going to go out because we're at Applebee's. Or whatever. Fill in the blank. You know how easy it is for all these jobs and all these things to disappear. It will happen in the blink of an eye. And it has. People do not... We get so focused on our things. We get focused on the stuff that happens in our lives. I'm certified by the 7 highly effective people. The 7 habits of highly effective people by Stephen R. Covey. And in this book... it gives you things that you need to find out about yourself. Learning about why you are here and what are you supposed to do. It takes over 100 times to get a habit. A lot of people will go on Thanksgiving or Christmas and they see the Salvation Army and they'll put their little change in. Or they'll volunteer their time. Or if it's not an issue that they don't want to volunteer, it's an issue that you have to be affiliated with a certain ministry, or you have to have a certain amount of money, or no, we won't take used goods. Oh no, we can't take these new goods. Or better yet, if you're a professional, oh, we won't work with you because you don't have a non-profit. Well, you know what? There were no non-profit organizations when the Pilgrims were here. There were no big, massive government things that you had to follow through. If you had a book and someone wanted to read it, you took the book, you took the ear corn, and it was a fair trade. It was a handshake. We'll see you in just a few minutes.